Hello everyone, welcome back to my 4-Star School YouTube channel, and in this lesson I'm going to talk about the button in the Flutter. As you can see from today's agenda, we will cover elevated button, text button, and outlined button. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial in the future. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. First, let's open our Visual Studio Code as well as our Android emulator. You can see from this main.dot file, I have already wrote these 3 buttons, and we will go over these 3 buttons one by one. The first one is this elevated button. Before Flutter 2, we can use raised button, and it took the same effect as this elevated button. So let's go back our agenda, and here you can see when you create this elevated button, by default it will give you a background. So as you can see here, I declare this elevated button and just implement its child attribute, which took any kind of widget. So I pass this text widget, and you can see we have this blue background and this white text. So as you can see, those child and onPress must be implemented. If we didn't implement those 2 attributes, actually a compile will give our error, right? Those 2 name parameter is required to disable our elevated button. In order to do that, we just pass the none to this onPressed attribute. So when we save, this button is disabled with a gray color, so you cannot click. And when I change to anonymous function, and when I click this button, you'll see this splashed color is a little bit white color. This indicates the button is clickable. And next I'm going to talk how we can style our elevated button. So the style attribute actually will apply for all of those buttons, the same as this text button and outlined button. Also, there are 2 ways to implement this styled attribute. The first one is we can use this button style, and the second one is we can use this elevated button style from. And first I'm going to talk this elevated button style from, and this one is my preferred way to declare the style of the button. So let's back to Visual Studio Code. So inside this elevated button, we have a style attribute. So when you move your mouse, you see it actually requires this button style, but we can use elevated button style from. It actually will return this button style, but it provides much simple way to declare those property. So first we can declare its background color by set this primary attribute. So we can set primary attribute to something like red. Right, when I save, you will see the background will actually turn to red. Also, this onPrimary is set the foreground color, which is the text color. So I'm going to set the foreground to onPrimary attribute to yellow. So when I save, you'll see this text going to change its color to yellow. And also we have this on surface attribute. When you implement this attribute, when the button is disabled, you'll have the effect. So let's back to Visual Studio Code. I just comment out those 2, and first I need to make this button disabled. So I just pass the none to this onPress the attribute, And inside this elevated button style from, I'm going to pass this on servers. I'm going to use the red color. So when I save, you will notice this button change its style, which is the red color we declare in this on surface attribute. And then we can also declare its size by specify this minimum size attribute. So back to Visual Studio Code, and we can specify this minimum size attribute, and we need to pass our size. So the first parameter would be the width, and the second one will be the height. So we will give our width 300 and height I can give 100. So I save it. You'll see this button will be increased to have a 300 width and 100 height. So this one we can define the width of our button. And another way to declare the height and weight for the button is we can wrap this elevated button to a container, and we can give this container height and weight, right? So for example, I give a 300 and weight and 100 height. So when I save, you will see we actually achieve the same effect when I specify this minimum size attribute inside this elevated button style form. Okay, so here I just remove this container. Okay, let's save. And next one is this text style. So we can specify the text style inside this style from. So we can change this text size to bigger, and we can specify the text style. And using this text style class, and we pass this font size, and we can increase the font size. And I just pass 24. So I save. And you will notice the font size of the elevated button increased to 24. Okay, the next one is this elevation attribute. So we may need to change this num to a normal anonymous function, but we leave it empty, and we need to comment out this on servers, and I comment those two, or maybe I can just remove those two attributes. So let's save. We have this button, and next we're going to try this elevation. So first I'm going to specify to 5. You'll see we have this a little bit a shadow, and we can even we can increase it even more so you can see clearly. By default, Flutter will set this elevation for us, right? If we set this to 0, this will actually have a more flat. But if we didn't implement this elevation, we will have a little shadow under the background color. And we're going to implement its shape. So first I need to comment this out. In the shape attribute, we can specify we're going to use this rounded rectangle border. Right? Inside this rounded rectangle border, we implement its border radius attribute, and we pass the border radius class, and we use it is circular, and we pass 36. So when I save, you will notice we will have this rounded rectangle border. So I save. You can see we change the shape of this elevated button. We can also make a circular button by changing this rounded rectangle border into a circle border. So let's try. and I'm going to change this rounded border to circle border. Inside this circle border, we can specify it is a border size, like a color or weight. Then border size, we can use the border size, and inside this border size, we can specify it is color, and maybe I use the red one. So, and also I need to give a size, minimum size. You could also increase the radius for this elevated button because we make a circle shape. So here you will choose the minimum number inside this size class. So for example, here you only choose 100 for its diameter. So for example, we change this number to 200. We could increase the diameters for this circular button, right? We could increase it a little bit, but only depends on the small the number inside this size class. Okay, back to gender. Another way we can specify its style by using this button style. So that's back to Visual Studio, and we can comment out this elevated button style from. Instead, we can pass the button style, right, by passing this button style class. When you move your mouse, you will see we have a lot of a predefined attribute. For example, I want to change the background color, right? In our style form, we can set it is a primary attribute, which is the equal to this background color, and we can set it to red. So you will notice when I set to red, it will give us error because actually you will accept this property, right? So we need to wrap this red color with this edge. Oh, sorry, maybe it should be Alt, and we place these colors inside this Alt, and then we will remove these error. So we save. You'll see now we have this elevated button with the red background. So it's pretty much the same. We can follow what we did in the style form, but this is very inconvenient. You need to use this material state property, and so here I really recommend you using the first approach we have talked. You can achieve the same effect what we did before by using this button style. Okay, I think that's for elevated button style, and also you can use those inside this text button and outlined button. So inside this text button, and we also have this style attribute, so we can use like a text button dot style from, right? And when you move your mouse, you'll see we have this the same attribute as we see in here, elevated button style from. So I'm not going to try those attributes again, but you can try. I highly recommend you to try yourself, so you will understand it more. So it's the same as this outlined button. So we have this style attribute. You can specify this style by using this outlined. Sorry, should be outlined button dot style from, right? And when you move your mouse, you'll see we got a similar button style. Right? You can specify it is a primary and on servers and background color, shadow color, right? So in this text button, we don't have this background, right? So when you set your primary color, so I'm going to Amber, so let's save. You're going to change your text color because in this elevated button, the primary color is for the background and on primary color is for the text color. But for this text button, the primary actually is the text color. And also when you move your mouse, you'll see inside these text button style flow, we don't have on primary. So it only give you this primary attribute, which is the text color show here. So we don't have on primary inside this text button. So for this outlined button, we also have this primary attribute, so we can pass the color. So here I'm using the green color. So when I save, you'll see this button text will turn to green. So you can change the border. So by specify it is side, right? And you can pass the border side. So inside this border side, you can pass the color. So we can change the color to blue, and also make it much wider. So we save. You will see we actually change this border for this outlined button. Right. So I highly recommend you to try this yourself, so you'll get more understanding of how those buttons work. So I think that's all for those 3 buttons. Okay, I think I forgot this one. So for this elevated button, it actually provides another constructor, which is elevated button icon. So we could change this elevated button to elevated button icon. So here I'm going to make another elevated button and using this icon. So by specify this elevated icon, then constructor, we need to pass this on press. So I'm going to leave it empty now. So those 3 attributes must required. So for this icon, so you need to pass your widget. So here I'm going to use the icons widget. So I'm going to use probably the icons settings. And also for this label, I can use the text widget. I'm going to name it setting. So let's save. And you will see we have this button with this icon before the text widget. Yeah, okay, I think that's all for today's video. So we talk about the elevated button and text button, and as well as this outlined button, and how can we customize it. Okay, so don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will see you in next video.